And we're live. So hello everyone and
Amazing.
welcome to another episode here with Sam. I'm gonna give you the mic just in a couple of seconds to talk about yourself. But before doing so, we've been talking about observability and a lot of topics around that. But today we are trying to sum up everything and talk about platform engineering. And we're gonna see why exactly we're talking about this. Before giving the stage to Sam, I'm just gonna show you a couple of conversations. So the last one was in French, and we had Samuel, and we talked about observability and open source tools. This one is going to be about platform engineering, and next week we have two interesting talks. The first one is going to be about open telemetry, and it's a definition, and it's going to be in English. And then the one on the fourth is going to be with Victoria Metrics, and we're going to talk about Victoria Metrics and SRE in general, etc. But today we have a special guest, which is Sam. Sam, hi, how are you doing?
Hello, thank you so much, Aziz, for the invite. It's funny
Thank
when you messaged me like, "Hey, would you want to come talk?" I was like, "But I don't speak French." So it's awesome that you do both French and English, and like
Yeah,
French.
it's bilingual. You can speak whatever language you want, as long as
It's
we
nice.
understand it.
It's
Yeah, and
so
thank you
cool.
very much for accepting to participate in this talk, even if it's small at this stage. But we're making it bigger, and one day it's going to be as big as KubeCon. Who knows?
Well, you always have to start somewhere, and I mean, I think like I gave some talks at PlatformCon, one of our platform engineering conference,
Yeah.
2 years ago, and I think it had like 11 views when it first came out.
Yeah.
Digital is forever. It sits there, it grows, more people learn. So I'm very happy to be here at the beginning of your journey and
Yeah.
talking about
And
probably my favorite topics really with you.
yeah, I appreciate that very much. And before going to the details of what's platform engineering, do you want to give us a couple of words about who you are and what you do in your daily job?
So I've been known to talk a lot, so feel free to cut me off. I'm a big talker, but really the simple way to understand myself is I'm like a DevRel, but for platform engineering as an
Mhm.
industry, which is an incredibly fortunate role to be in. So I started working in the kind of the platform engineering community, helping organize community events, kind of getting the community together. And I get now the chance to go to lots of conferences. You've seen on my LinkedIn, I was in like QCon,
All over the
CubeCon,
place.
Ignite. Now I'm going to Las Vegas next week, not just for the casino, but for reInvent, going to lead dev, container days.
Yeah.
And this is the stuff that I love.
Okay.
Like I really, my goal is to basically take all of the awesome, incredible knowledge that's out there in the platform engineering world, kind of in the enterprise. I talk to literally hundreds of platform leaders a year. I run surveys. I have conversations with practitioners basically every single day. I mean, I had 7 calls today with platform engineers and platform product managers working at companies, and I just grill them. Like if you've ever met me at a conference, I just grill them on every question that I have.
Yeah.
And then I take that information, that knowledge, and I write articles, I write reports. I think I mentioned that we're just about a couple of weeks away from publishing the State of Platform Engineering report, which is kind of the defining research really for the platform engineering space from the community side. So that's me. And for those who aren't familiar in regards to the community, well, we're the world's largest platform engineering focused community. We've got about 270,000 people around the world. And we've really been there since the beginning. Like we coined the term internal developer platform. My article on Golden Paths was 3 months before Google's, like claim to fame there. It was a conversation with Gartner that, I claim was a driver in getting us on the platform engineering on the hype cycle in 2022. And, my friends of mine in the community were the ones who came up with DevOps is dead. So sorry about that. We get a lot of flack from that still.
Are you implying that platform engineering is DevOps 2.0? Is that
I'm not implying it. I mean, I'll say it right out. I mean, platform engineering is DevOps as it hoped to be. All the goals of DevOps without any of the negatives. So grand statement, but I'm happy to go deeper into that if you want.
Yeah, but so what let's define DevOps for first. What is the developer in terms of like what is a DevOps engineer in your terms, and what is a platform engineer in your terms as well, and what makes the difference between?
I mean, I think that it's even a mistake a little bit, this idea of a DevOps engineer, really. I think that's where we kind of fell astray. Like DevOps is a philosophy around automation, around culture, around like improving kind of workflows, speeding up the software delivery lifecycle, making it easier, making it better. Obviously, give a way more specific technical on all these things, but at its core, that's the goal. DevOps was about improving the software delivery lifecycle through cultural changes, through automation. By that definition, it's exactly the same as platform engineering. And so I don't blame people who are like, they hear a definition of platform engineering, they're like, well, I am doing that. It's DevOps. And that's why I really focus on this idea of the goal of DevOps versus the actual execution. Because the goal of DevOps and the goal of platform engineering are exactly the same. The goal is to bring cultural change and bring automation to improve the software delivery lifecycle. Make things, basically make software come out faster and easier. Both of them have the same goal, but they go about it in slightly different ways and with a different framing. And that framing is, where is the kind of the cognitive load going? DevOps often kind of gets called this idea of shifting left. I would say they're different concepts, but people talk a lot about shifting left with DevOps. Now, shifting left was the idea of moving stuff from the software delivery lifecycle left, earlier in the chain. Rather than just having ops tasks be done by ops people later on, the dev at the beginning would be thinking about ops at the same time. Now, that's a great notion. The problem is, what it usually means in DevOps is you just shift tasks or shift cognitive load, shift BS. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear. Just
not allowed.
Like just shifting crap basically onto somebody else, onto the dev. And platform engineering is a reframing of that. It's less shifting left onto someone else and more shifting down into the platform. And that framing, I think, is a really important distinction, because with platform engineering, you're reframing it away from, I'm going to put this load onto someone else, but I'm going to put this load onto the platform. I'm going to use the platform, a technical or cultural solution, to remove that load entirely. So if we take something like, I'll give an example, like, container image scanning, DevSecOps, this is something that used to be like a security domain. Well, we shifted it left onto the developer. Now the developer has to, will often perhaps have to scan the container image themselves.
Yeah.
Why are they doing that? Has zero to do with what they're best at. Is a totally new thing they have to learn and understand. Basically ends up being a task they have to do that then bounces back to someone else who really understands it. It's a perfect example of how the philosophy of shifting left falls kind of on its face pretty fast. Now, in a platform scenario, you would shift capability into the platform. So it would be something that is automated and happens automatically. So rather than taking the load and putting it onto someone else, you're getting rid of the load entirely. This was a very, very, very long spiel here. Yeah. I told you I talk a lot.
No, I completely understand what you're saying. Just to make sure.
Difference.
Yeah, that's sorry to cut you off. What I was saying is that if I understand it completely, I want to make a parallel with the real world scenarios. It's basically, for example, if you have a civil engineer who designed the house and you're asking them to build it, so they're having two hats at the same time. They cannot be both. So you have to choose where you are going to shift. If you shift towards the designer, then you're going DevOps. If you shift towards the construction engineer, then you are from more of a platform engineer. Is the analogy right here?
Yeah, and that's, and I think that the funny thing is, we have so many examples in so many different industries of this exact kind of process, where things were like really siloed, then we start bringing it together, and then we realize, well, actually, with technology, we can have the silos, but in a better way. And software is really one of the only places where we're still in this old model in many ways. There's a lot of talk now about like the industrialization of software, and I think platform engineering is a big part of that trend. There's probably way too much on that topic to touch on now, but that example is a great example. Like when you go to fly on a plane, there is an entire infrastructure behind it that you just trust, that is there. And all of those people do their own individual thing in their individual silo. But the reason why that doesn't cause the plane to crash is because we have technology to be able to connect it. There are project managers who can understand and see all the different areas. They don't have to know, well, this is how the plane should be flown. This is the best way to get the baggage on the plane. This is the system we need for checking in. You're able to have the silos all throughout the organization because technology and governance, I guess, to use a really corporate word, can connect all the infrastructure together for that system. We do that in healthcare. We do it in mining. We do it in oil and gas. We do it in media. We do it almost everywhere. But in software, we're still really in this like individual artisan model. And I think DevOps is a big part of that. But DevOps really was the first step in moving beyond this. It just, in my opinion, wasn't done in a way that really worked very well. Now, the original goal, shift earlier in the life cycle. And so you're not just, let's think about ops or security at the end. We're thinking about it across the whole timeline. Makes perfect sense. But usually what happens in DevOps is you're just dumping all the crap onto a developer who probably shouldn't be doing that stuff. So this was a very long answer to your short question about platform engineering versus DevOps.
No, that's a great answer. Thank you very much for the details. When you say that you're talking about shifting to the product and then you're implying that you have a lot of teams. So when I hear this, I think that platform engineering is more of a enterprise concept. Is not something that you would apply, for example, in a startup or something like this. How do you see that approach?
So you can have platform engineering in a startup, and I've talked to small teams that do have them. But really, at the end of the day, it's also similar with a lot of the DevOps philosophy. Like if you're able to just Slack message every single developer in your company within a couple hours or within 30 minutes, you probably don't need a platform.
Makes sense.
Your platform will start to emerge. It will start to grow. Like you're going to build CI/CD pipelines pretty fast. That's not something you're going to wait too crazy long for. So you should be thinking about your platform. Luca, one of the core contributors to the community, has a great quote, which I love to steal. It's like, if you don't build your platform, it will build itself. So you should be thinking about it in this way. But if you have the ability to just Slack message all 10 of your devs, you probably don't need to, really build a super automated, super refined system. Maybe the old model of you just doing ops for them works. But the principles of platform engineering, one thing I haven't even mentioned yet, platform as a product, this product management angle, that is absolutely something you should be thinking about as a startup. The key kind of difference between DevOps and platform engineering is this product mindset. A platform engineer thinks about the work that they're doing like they're building a product for an external customer. I'm thinking about this internal tooling or this internal process as if it was an iPhone and you have to use the iPhone. That means I need to do user research. I need to understand UX. I need to think about your experience. I need to build features that you need and want. And that's not something that DevOps really has built into its core, and platform engineering does have built into its core. Like if you are not doing like platform as a product, then you're not doing platform engineering. And I notice this quite a lot. Like I'll be at conferences and I'll ask someone like, what do you do? I'm a platform engineer. Oh, cool. Do you guys have, platform as a product? No. Okay. Well, how do you do user research? What do you mean? Like, how do you decide what features to add to the platform? Oh, we have some beers and we just decide what we want to add. It's like, okay, so you're not doing platform engineering then. Like platform engineering is about treating it like a product. Like that's the distinguisher. And you can absolutely do that at a startup. Like at a startup, you can be thinking about your developers as your customers. You can be calling them up being like, hey, what is your pain? Like, what is the thing that's annoying you the most? What is the pain in the butt that you're at night being like, oh, I don't want to be doing this tomorrow. And then that's how you decide, what features you should be adding, what tooling you should add, what you should change, what documentation needs to be better. You can absolutely do that in a small team.
Yeah, when you say that you're thinking the platform as a product, for me, I tend to think that if I'm building a product, I would have the same organization or the same hierarchy that I would have product manager. I would have a team that would develop, a team for testing, and a team for run, etc. So, does that organization also apply on platform engineering, or in platform engineering we say that everybody is the same and we need to all be?
Well, I mean that's a really spot on question for the state of platform engineering volume 4, which is coming out in a few weeks. So for years there has been this idea that, oh well, everyone should just get their platform as a product mindset. Like if you read Team Topologies and some of the awesome work from them, you have this, okay, you've got 10 platform engineers, every single one of them just needs to have product mindset. And you can see the clash in that. If you've talked to a lot of engineers, well, they don't want to be product people.
Exactly.
You're talking to a deep infrastructure guy. He's like, I don't want to think about customers. That's why I'm, he's probably angry that he doesn't get to just work with bare metal all day, every day anymore. So it hasn't really worked as well as one would hope. And that's where this kind of platform product manager role came from, where it's like, okay, you're going to have a dedicated product manager within your platform team to help smooth over the layers of expertise that you're just not really going to get from an engineer. Now, that doesn't mean that the framing of that team should stop being about product and about customer. They should still think of themselves as, we're a team that serves customers in the same way that a software development team or an app dev team, building features into an app that users use. They should still have that framing, but in my opinion, and the data really shows it, so both my opinion and a bit of the research, the really high performing enterprises when it comes to platform engineering are the ones that have this dedicated product manager role. And that can be hard to get. You need to figure out how to convince your boss, hey, how can we take one of our hotshot product managers off something that clearly makes direct revenue and put them onto an internal product where it feels blurrier. And it can be a tough sell. It's where you really need to start thinking about, how do you sell the ROI? How do you pitch your platform? So
exactly,
it does open up a wide box of problems. But you're absolutely right. You need
you mentioned an interesting point, which is the talent, how to hire like the right talent for the platform engineer. And it is something I have attended a meetup lately, and they were talking about the production engineer. They're not even talking about platform engineer, and you were talking about the challenges to hire production engineers, and they're saying basically that you cannot hire a junior engineer from school because they don't have the culture of production, and they don't have what it takes to maintain a production team. And I believe platform engineering is even worse. You cannot just hire anybody to platform engineer. There is I think there is minimum knowledge, or I think there is a very big amount of knowledge that you need to have in order to be efficient and to make impact as a platform engineer. And I think it's something that you address in platform engineering with your certifications. Do you want to talk about this a little bit?
Sure. So, I mean, I'm very lucky. I think a huge part of my knowledge, and I'm sure for some people listening, my bias around platform engineering, is because I have had the opportunity over the last year to help build probably the largest platform engineering kind of course ecosystem that's out there. So last year, we launched a fundamentals course, basically focusing on, you guessed it, the fundamentals, like platform as a product, minimum viable platforms, how do you get adoption, abstraction layers, architecture, like things like that. And I really thought when I was making the course that I was making the course for DevOps engineers, for SREs who wanted to transition into platform engineering. So it was really focused on that, like, what's the difference between DevOps and platform engineering, why, the struggles with DevOps, how we got here. And what totally surprised me. Like over 90% of people who took the course were platform engineers already, but they had either no idea what they were doing because their title had been changed, but their work and hadn't been changed. And they were like, hey, okay, I'm a platform engineer now. What does that mean? Or they just weren't sure what, like some of these core questions that you and I have just talked about, like how do you get a platform as a product, like a platform product manager?
Yeah.
You know, there's no way my boss is going to give me one. I can't hire for one. So how do I get this product mindset? You know, half my team, you know, thinks platform just means backstage. Half my team thinks platform means I need to get a portal, you know, harness portal. You know, what is the best practice? What's the shared language? So we were totally in the messy middle, like way more than I realized. And so we expanded the courses massively. You know, we added basically 4 different certifications to really focus on the 4 different areas of platform engineering rather than just cramming it all together. So there's a practitioner certification, there's a professional certification, which goes much deeper, of course. There's a leadership certification, so really just on, hey, you're leading a platform team. What does that entail? Like, how do you actually get developer adoption? How do you convince your exec? You know, how do you prove ROI? Things like this. And then the 4th is the architect one, because at the end of the day, we have some very, very, very technical people who are like, look, I'm needed for the platform story, but I don't give a crap about product management. I want to know how I can combine these tools together and what the architecture layers I should be doing. And so we really kind of expanded out to have to cover and answer some of those questions and those problems. And then, of course, lots of free courses, observability for platform engineers. We've got an open telemetry for platform engineers course coming out, which you should check out. So lots of stuff like that.
I've seen your certifications. There are a lot of free certifications that allow you to get hands-on on the observability. I think even you have something on Kubernetes and
yeah. We have a Kubernetes multi-cluster lifecycle management.
Yeah, it's interesting. So one question that comes into my mind: who gets to define those concepts of platform engineering? What it is? What should people focus on? Is it something like community oriented, or is it? So, for example, if I make the parallel with SRE, I think it's Google that defined what an set reliability engineer is. Now, who defines what platform engineer is?
Well, I mean, it's community oriented in that, like, I'm learning from the community every day, and my colleagues who help run the community, you know, Luca and Florian with me. But it's really just based on what is actually happening at the enterprise. So, for example, this question of should you have a platform as a platform product manager? 2 years ago, the idea was no, your whole team should be product manager, should be thinking product. And that's something that has changed over time. And it was a question that was on my mind. I go to conferences, we organize these roundtables, like 30, 40 people doing group therapy, basically. And I grill them and I ask, I'm like, okay, you're the head of platform at Lego. Do you have a platform product manager? You know, maybe they say yes, maybe they say no. It's like, okay, you know, Rabobank, ExxonMobil, just really dozens of organizations. And I ask them, and we do surveys. Surveys are a great source, but really just having a conversation, especially when you talk to like some of the consultants I work with who are working on hundreds of platform conversations a year. I'm like, well, who are the winners? Who are the losers? And they're like, well, the ones who win are the ones who have platform product manager. So that shapes what I write. It shapes how we do research. We have a fantastic ambassador program. There's about 90 ambassadors, and I'm basically grilling all of them all the time on our questions. They're sharing their knowledge with me. So I think so much more than like SRE and even DevOps, to be honest, it's shaped by what's actually happening, and it's way more fluid. Like if the answer had come back, oh no, teams who hire a platform product manager don't succeed. The only teams that succeed are the ones who really enforce this group-wide sense of product management. Then that's what we would be writing about. That's what we'd be talking about. And I think a huge benefit of that for platform engineering is you're going to run into way less this problem of, okay, SRE is this incredible thing that's super successful. You know, I read the amazing Google book. Well, Google's Google. You know, most businesses don't have Google. engineers. They don't have Google level setup. They don't have Google level culture. So
they have Google money also.
they don't have Google money, that's for sure. So when they try and do SRE, they're not going to do Google SRE. And that's been the big flaw with DevOps. I mean, there's a fantastic report, the DevOps benchmarking report from a few years ago, which really shaped a lot of this DevOps into platform engineering stuff. And it was like less than 10% of the over 1,000 organizations surveyed were like doing DevOps well based on DORA metrics. The other 90% were totally failing. And that's because most of what they're trying to mirror is stuff that's happening at Google, at Microsoft, AWS, Netflix. And it's like, you're not Netflix, so don't try to be. So that's really what we try and do differently on the platform engineering side. It's like what we're doing is just what's being shaped by what's happening. And what's happening is way more, like Swisscom or like these random companies that are huge and they're learning and they're enterprise and they're, far more IT than they are tech. But, they're doing platform engineering and they're people to learn from, and you combine all that knowledge. I think we can really do something here that has a lot of really powerful impact on actual people's lives, on like the work that we actually do.
Yeah, and I believe that makes you happy every time you see an impact on that.
Yeah.
You've talked about like the effort you're doing, getting all the information and grilling people to give you this. Are you writing a book? Are you writing something that would later on be published, so that you can resume or put all together all the knowledge that you were able to? I see you wondering, so you may not want to answer that. We can skip it.
I don't.
We
no comment.
Okay, we can skip that answer. No problem. Yeah, before jumping on the live, we were talking off stage about the adoption culture, and we were talking about the difference between European adoption and American adoption. How is the adoption of platform engineering generally in the world, and then what difference do you see between European adoption and American adoption, and then the rest of the world as well?
Well, the funny thing there, I mean, I remember when Gartner in, I think it was like 2022, maybe early 2023, they put out this great stat where it was like, by 2026, 80% of enterprises will have a platform. And I'm literally like the platform guy. And I was like, that's insane. I love that Gartner said it. Amazing for me, but it's insane. Well, the DORA report, which is put together by lots of people, I think it's a big part of Google is a big partner on that. So the DORA report interviews like 30,000 people a year. And their numbers as of last month are that 90% of enterprises have a platform.
90%.
So 90%. So we're a year earlier and we're higher than Gartner's insane prediction.
And what do you think has fueled this?
AI.
Okay.
AI is absolutely the fuel for that. And I'm sure we have lots of AI topics. I'm actually very impressed with us making it 28 minutes without talking about AI yet. So that's a kudo.
That's a huge win,
It's a huge win. It's always a big win. But to talk about the different adoption levels, it's really fascinating how far ahead some surprising places are. And I think it's because the US has always been ahead of us. It's been ahead of Europe. It's been ahead of basically the rest of the world when it comes to tech. They were the first with cloud. They're the first with containerization. They're the first with DevOps, obviously with SRE. So they've always been ahead, which means the ROI of platform engineering hasn't been as clear and as high. And I look and I talk to a lot of kind of US companies who have already been doing DevOps. They might have already, they're already doing DevOps, already doing SRE. They're always already quite containerized. And so they're doing an ROI calculation with me, and they're like, it's, okay, it's a 50% improvement on this. Well, it's probably not worth the cost and the effort. But then you look at some European companies and it's like, 3,000% ROI, 3,000% improvement in this, like bogglingly insane numbers, because we're leapfrogging a lot of the stuff that they haven't got to yet. Maybe they still have lots of legacy stuff. Maybe they're very regulated. and these are places where platform engineering really thrives. It's surprising to see some of the enterprises that we think of very slow moving, very behemoth like healthcare are really crushing when it comes to platform engineering, because it's a world that they understand. We're in a world now where you need guardrails, the sense of guardrails versus golden paths. Like healthcare totally gets that. So they're just taking that model and putting it into platform engineering, and they're doing amazingly with it. And so Europe has lots of businesses like that. And so you'll see lots of companies where you're like, you never expect to be at the front lines of innovation, starting platform teams, building platforms, really thinking about platforms as a product, and seeing really crazy and awesome success from it, which is awesome to see. Now, that'll probably level out at some point, but it's why you can go to a platform engineering meetup in Egypt, and you can have conversations that are so incredibly high quality with the engineers there. I mean, I talked to some people in Nigeria. We have some cool Nigerian platform engineering ambassadors, and they're like, we're leapfrogging. DevOps is only just getting to many of the organizations here. So now that we can reframe DevOps into platform engineering and it makes more sense in our context, it's a surprisingly fast rate of adoption when it comes to more platform engineering concepts. Of course, we're so at the beginning. The industry is still very immature. We've got a long way to go. So take everything I've said with like, this does not mean the platform engineering revolution is over or whatever. But that's really why it's so interesting to see how much more mature Europe, especially compared to the US, is when it comes to platform engineering topics.
That's interesting. You may be the first one that gives a positive image about regulations in Europe. So you do actually believe that regulation was a positive thing that made
I wouldn't go that far. I would say that regulations and guardrails mean that, it's a world that platform engineers in Europe already understand. So it makes it easier for them to navigate it. So it's a positive spin on it, but
we have a question here before we carry on with our conversation. They're asking about the collaboration in terms of the community engineering. How does that go in platformengineering.org? How do people collaborate, and how can they participate in that community?
So if I'm understanding right, it's a question mark about either participating in the community or about I'm kind of curious about how.
I think Item gave us an open question. We can interpret it as we want.
High risk giving me an open question, buddy. I'll talk for 3 hours, as you've already heard.
Yeah, I'm trying to guardrail you,
Yeah, you're gonna put guardrails on me. Well, I think to answer an idea of interacting with the platform engineering community, I mean, the opportunities are endless, really. Platformengineering.org is where we post most of the written content, most of the reports, but we also do meetups. So I was just in San Francisco last week for an awesome meetup, supported by our awesome Circle CI. They let us use their office. So we got kind of 80 platform engineers in there to talk about platform engineering and eat pizza, which was great. And then, of course, we have a big conference, PlatformCon, which is really like the place if you're interested in platform engineering. We actually just did one in Paris, Aziz.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, you should have been there. You'll be there next year for sure.
Yeah, for sure. How did you organize it? I mean, I'm curious. I thought that platform engineering is something that happened like 2 years ago, and you're telling me that you have already organized an event here in Paris, that's
So PlatformCon started as like a digital conference in 2022, obviously during COVID. Do it online, and then last year we had the first one in person in London, just about 300 people. And then this year, we had 800 people in London, 450 in New York, and we worked with an awesome partner in France to bring it to Paris as well. So WeScale is a kind of an IT consultancy, and they're doing some pretty cool stuff. We work with them a lot on the platform engineering, and they're kind of a trusted partner with us. And they brought PlatformCon to Paris. So
that's cool. That's cool. And in terms of adoption, when you say you've talked about enterprises adopting the platform engineering, do you see any? So you've talked about the medical industry. If I don't know, remember the exact term, is there like a pattern that you see around or among those enterprises who are adopting platform engineering, or you're seeing basically that everybody is open for this adoption, and it's basically just a matter of time before it gets worldwide?
It's just a matter of time before it gets worldwide. I mean, when you look at the numbers in relation to platform engineering, whether they're calling it platform engineering or not, like platform engineering is the future. It's, you know, whether it has that title or whether we call it something else, the philosophy is kind of unbeatable, especially when you start to think beyond just software. This idea of treating an internal platform like a product and its internal users as customers is universal. You know, that's the exact same thing whether you're building a platform to help developers get code out faster, or you're building a platform that lets nurses really quickly order medication to come to them. That it's the exact same principle. Your nurse is there, your customer, you need to think about user research with them. So the principles of platform engineering are really universal. And so that's why it's kind of taking this software world, especially in the enterprise, by storm, because it makes perfect sense. It's a reframing of the challenge that really resonates very quickly. And especially now that we're seeing the maturity of the industry improve, like 2 years ago, you might have seen the platform engineering hype and be like, oh, I want to jump on this. But what would you read? What would you learn? You know, how would you even know where to start? You're like, okay, I need a platform. What does the platform look like? Platform's a product. How do I even do that? Whereas now, I mean, there's literally, obviously our community has loads of stuff, but even beyond the community, there's dozens of courses, there's reports with all the data and research you need. There's hundreds of articles. So we've reached that maturity step where people can actually just start executing. They know what the best practices are. They know how to do it. They know how to prove ROI. They have clear kind of concepts of, this is what I should approach. And also the consultancies have woken up in a really fantastic way. You know, nobody likes consultants, but when it comes to something like this, you really have a huge impact from people like ThoughtWorks, like WeScale in France, who are like, hey, I've talked to 50 other big regulated enterprises, or I've worked with 6 other airlines. This is the best practice. Let me help you answer those questions. Let me help you pick. These are the things you should be automating. This is the golden path you should be building, especially when it comes to AI. And that's where we're really seeing the acceleration point. Like the last 2 years, or from 2022 to kind of like 2024, it was the messing around, it was the testing, it was the playing, lots of failures, lots of platform engineering hell, as I call it, like lots of millions burned, because we're learning. You know, you're learning, understanding what works. We didn't really have that much material to train us. But you see in the State of Platform Engineering Volume 4 report, which hopefully you will go read in a few weeks when it comes out, you know, we ask people about their platform engineering maturity. We asked them last year and we asked them this year. And this year, every single measure is higher. There's more people doing really great platform engineering. There's less people doing bad platform engineering. The people who are doing platform engineering in the middle have all improved slightly. Now, they're incremental improvements, but it's because the industry is getting way more mature. And we'll really start to see that take off over the next couple of years and move into like the fact of life territory, where it's just, platform engineering is how software is approached at organizations, whether they call it platform engineering or not.
Yeah. And the fact, as you say, that when you're dealing with enterprises, it's basically the same people that are going from one company to another, and the turnover is basically around 3 years. So I think it's about time we see the spread of the platform engineer, as people are going to change their jobs and they're going to other companies, and they will spread what they have learned from other companies. That's a very interesting way of.
Well, also, especially, I mean, like, when you think about some of the things that platform engineering is excellent at, like one of the main use cases I recommend to people when looking at platform engineering is thinking about onboarding. like how fast can you get a new hire into actually pushing their first commit? Like how long does it take? If you ask most people at many organizations, it can take ages. And then you're like, well, why does it take ages? Like, what are all the steps within that are taking ages? And if you break down that entire list of things from onboard to pushing their first bit of code, you're like, well, probably, maybe this approval step, which goes to here and then waits, well, maybe we could even just get rid of that, or maybe we could simplify it, or maybe it could be part of a portal where it pops up and someone gets an alert and they see and then they can check. Like, there's so many different things you can improve there. And we see that with organizations where it's like they've moved their onboarding time. I mean, I just interviewed someone from one of the big 5 accounting firms who was like, well, we changed onboarding. If we count onboarding from hired to first commit, they decreased it from like 9 weeks down to 1 week. That's huge. So now you're like, okay, now it's way easier for us to hire people, to get people on board into understanding the platform. If you're then having a really strong structure of platform as a product, which means documentation. What software product have you ever used that doesn't have documentation? So your internal platform should have documentation too, which means it's way easier for a platform engineer to come on board, understand the platform, understand the needs. And so this process starts to happen way more. So it's not just that someone can switch companies and bring the knowledge with them. That's totally the case. But it's way easier for people to join your company and get the knowledge faster. Now, obviously, we're still in the early days with that. But basically, any avenue you look at platform engineering, it's kind of self-accelerating.
Yeah. So basically, the idea is to make a manifest or YAML file of a profile of an engineer, from an engineer that is applicable anywhere. So if you take it here, you can apply it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and I agree with you. The fact that every company has its own standards in terms of what technology they use and how they use it. The fact that you onboard somebody who are used to another standard or another way of working, and you ask them to adapt very quickly, it's not an easy task. That's why it takes, as you said, 9 weeks. And from my experiences also here, it's basically around that 1 month, 2 months for the onboarding. That's interesting. So when we talk about, I think it's hard to answer that question, but when we talk about any, for example, if we talk about observability, we estimate the market share, or we estimate the value, give it a dollar value of the market share there. Do you have anything similar for platform engineering, the market share or the market?
So we don't approach it in that way, because in my view, something like that is often immeasurable. I'm obsessed with numbers, and I would love to just like do a chart and it's like, bam, this is the platform engineering market share. But I think the really important challenge is whether people are doing platform engineering, but they're not calling it platform engineering, which is fine. And then people are calling something platform engineering, but they're not actually doing platform engineering. And so we're still in too messy a middle, I think, to be like, yeah, this is the market share that is platform engineering wise. And I think also, we've got that great number, 90% of enterprises have a platform. But does that mean that, like, how many of the developers in their organization are actually onboarded to the platform already? That we don't know yet. And I would say that number is still much smaller. Like, you might have, I'm not going to say any names, because just to accidentally say someone's name that I shouldn't talk about. I got to be careful with that. Okay. You take a European airline and you're like, okay, well, they have a platform, so therefore they fit into that 90% number. They've got a platform, but their platform still is in its kind of testing phase. It's only got 2 teams working on it. It's only 30 developers. And over the next 2 years, they're going to onboard the other 2,000 developers to that. So that's where we are now. I think to talk about like market share, I think market share is lower than we would think based on some of these big, exciting headline numbers, but it's going to grow very rapidly because basically everybody has a platform or is thinking about platforms already. but most people are just still in that testing phase of like, yeah, we've got 1 or 2 apps on it. We've got, 30 developers on the platform. But that stuff moves fast. Like once you've proved your MVP, once you've been like, okay, this clearly works for these 20 developers, there's no reason why you wouldn't start to enroll the other few thousand at your organization. So over the next 2 or 3 years, I mean, over the next 1 year, basically, I think things are going to really start to skyrocket.
Yeah, and I think also people tend to like to see the ROI of their work. So it's going to take a couple of quarters and earnings to see the impact, the real impact of what they are doing. We've been talking for a couple of minutes now, and I feel that we are basically defining the principles of platform engineering, but from like a concrete standpoint, what is a platform engineer? What are the pillars that like make a platform engineer? What is like the knowledge of tools or of concepts or items that would make it perfect? So if I wanted to ask you to shape the perfect profile that you would hire, for example, as a platform engineer, what would you want to see in that person?
Well, I'm going to do every interviewer's least favorite thing. I'm going to have to give you a non-answer to your question. Because there is no, when it comes to tools, when it comes to languages, there is no perfect platform engineer because each organization probably looks completely different. And so the perfect platform engineer is the cultural stuff. It's the platform as a product stuff. Those are the things that make the perfect platform engineer, not the tooling. Because maybe your organization uses completely different languages, completely different tooling. Look, at the end of the day, 80% of platform engineers are probably going to be interacting with Terraform, Kubernetes. You're going to be having to deal with cloud providers, hyperscalers. You're almost certainly going to be using Python for sure. This is undeniable. There's going to be bash scripts. There's going to be YAML. Like, yes, I acknowledge all of those facts of life. But if you want to distinguish yourself as a platform engineer and be a platform engineer, it's the cultural stuff that's going to make you stand out. Probably everybody listening here and both of us are familiar enough with Python to be a platform engineer. That's not the thing that's going to make you stand out. Like being like, oh, I'm great with Go. That's not going to make you stand out as a platform engineer. What will make you stand out is the product management side. To be like, hey, I can think about this like a product. This is how I would do user research. This is how I would decide what features to add. This is how I would think about the golden paths and the ROI of the platform. If you have that, you will get hired as a platform engineer if you have the baseline technical knowledge that you need, for sure.
Yeah. So basically, you're saying that the hiring is going to be based on the mindset. You're basically asking the people if they would culturally fit
for sure
with the mindset of
well, I mean, look, we all know how engineering hiring goes, and AI is going to read your CV and it's going to want you to have 70 years of Rust experience or totally random stuff like that. I mean, whatever the job application says in terms of languages and stuff you need, you probably still need to know. Obviously, you still need to know the technical things that's at the organization. Like being a platform engineer doesn't just mean, great, I never have to deal with Kubernetes again. Like obviously, if the organization or the enterprise uses Kubernetes, you need to understand it. If they're working with Terraform, which they probably are, you need to know how to write a Terraform file. But once you get through those early useless stages, the thing that will really set you apart if you're talking to the actual platform team is the cultural stuff. It's platform as a product, because 99 out of 100 times a platform initiative doesn't fail because of tools. Like they don't fail because they're using Cortex versus Port or Humanitech versus Centessa or Kratex, excuse me. Like they're failing because they don't have the platform as a product stuff down. They don't have a shared language. They don't have the cultural things that make platform engineering both so successful, but also so challenging for so many organizations. So if you can come in and be like, hey, I get it. I know exactly what platform engineering is. I know exactly what platform as a product is. I know how to do user research. And these are really hard for engineers. I get that. That's why you will stand out massively if you come in with that under your belt.
Yeah. And I think it all comes down we're not doing technology and coding for coding. for the sake of itself. We are doing it for an end purpose, which is to solve
Absolutely.
the pain of the end
Absolutely.
user. Yeah. Talking about
Yeah.
hiring, do you see any openings for platform engineers? Is it something that you see on the openings, job
Oh
openings?
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's growing. I mean, I like to go on LinkedIn and search for how many platform engineering job titles are open at any one time. And 2 years ago, there was 2,000 worldwide. There's currently 11,000 open worldwide. So,
Okay.
this trend is also continuing. Like, people are hiring for platform engineers. They want platform engineers. They want that skill set. They want people who are eager to learn it. I mean, I was literally at a roundtable, this platform group therapy I was talking about, and someone mentioned, oh, I'm out of work right now. I'm looking for a job. And immediately 2 people pounced. We had 2 VP platforms there who pounced on them. Where are you based? What are you working on? What are you? Because we're like, yes, hiring is challenging in most areas, but this is the most cutting edge skill set. And we haven't touched on AI yet. And I think we should probably spend a bit of time talking about the intersection of AI and platform engineering to close us out. But this is a super, super key moment for platform engineering. Platform engineering is more in demand ever as a discipline, which means platform engineers are more in demand than ever.
Yeah, and do you also see? I believe you have talked about WeScale in France, correct? Is that the name?
Yeah.
Do you see, like, we call them here ESN, numerical enterprises for something like this? Do you see that those consulting companies are hiring people for those roles, or are like training people for this kind of a roles?
The training wise, like, is happening. I mean, that's a big part of a lot of the students that we take. So lots of these kind of service providers that we work with are like, hey, train our 5 consultants to make sure that they really know what they're talking about. And so they can basically then go out and use what we learned, what they learned from us, and continue on. So that's really happening a lot. Like, it's not just enterprises training their whole teams, which does happen. It's a lot of consultants training their consultants to make sure they know what they're talking about. So the training element is really happening there. And I would say they are hiring people. Like, platform engineering is one of the biggest kind of trends in the enterprise at the moment. It's, data transformation and AI stuff is obviously an unbeatable area, but the intersection between AI and platforms is so big that the dollar amounts for some of these deals from a consultancy perspective are huge, and they need people to work them. They need people who get it.
Yeah, that's correct. And since we made it to minute 50 without mentioning AI, we mentioned actually two times or 3 times.
But very briefly. So
yeah, what is your stance? What is the intersection between AI and the platform engineering? And I have an idea about this, and I want you to correct me if I'm thinking wrong here. I think that you cannot build an AI product without having a platform engineer, without observing what you're building. So I think one of the pillars of an AI application is the capacity to observe it so that you can ameliorate it. And you cannot observe it if you don't have a platform around it. Am I hallucinating here? Or?
You bring a tear to my eyes,
I'm gonna applaud myself as well.
You are bang on. You are absolutely bang on. I mean, you're bang on in my opinion, which doesn't really matter much, but the research that we have done across the community and the research from Google, from Dora, says exactly that. Like, if you want to succeed in AI, you need a platform behind it. Now, what that platform brings is it brings things like observability. Like, good AI has observability around it. Good AI has guardrails and security built in a way that keeps things safe without crushing it. And for that, you need a platform. You need platform engineering. And we see that in the Dora report. I mean, I wrote a study called The State of AI and Platform Engineering, where we surveyed like 400 or 500 platform engineers, asked them about AI and platform engineering. And it was like basically around 5% of platform engineers were succeeding with their AI stuff. So 95% of AI initiatives were not succeeding, or whatever that means. And that's the same number that we saw in the Dora report. It's the same number that we saw in MIT, give or take 1 or 2%, that famous MIT number. Yeah. Now, What are those 5% doing? Well, they're the ones who have a strong platform kind of foundation layer that the AI is built on. Now obviously there's questions around like, what do we define as success, yada yada yada, but when it comes down to it, the ones who are really delivering business value, the ones who are really delivering on ROI when it comes to AI, are the ones who have the platform layer beneath it, because that platform enables observability, it enables security, it gives guardrails, it makes it possible to let your developers just experiment with AI in a safe environment. All of the challenges of AI, the tool sprawl. Do I use Cursor? Do I use Canyon? Do I, whatever? Because you can use platform engineering to build a safe sandbox for them to play in, so your developers can just go wild without blowing everything up. To do that, you need a platform. So all the benefits of AI are things that can get accelerated by platform engineering, and all of the negatives of AI are things that can be kind of remediated or at least balanced with platform engineering.
Yeah, you made me think of I was thinking of an analogy to sum the platform engineering definition up, and what I'm thinking of is like parenting. You are parenting the whole thing. As a parent, you need to protect the environment. You need to estimate what they need. You need to think ahead. You need to think about everything, every small detail, so that the house or the home should stay up. So like basically, you're
bang on.
as a platform engineer, you're a parent of
the absolutely. I mean, absolutely. Like that's the way that you should think about it. I mean, I was just in a meetup, platform engineering meetup in San Francisco, the one I mentioned. So one of our speakers was Aaron Erickson, who runs an AI testing lab at NVIDIA. So he was like platform engineering guy for years. Then now he's kind of the AI guy. So he has the perfect blend of both. And he likes to call AI angry intern, and you need to think about your AI as an angry intern who doesn't understand, well, if I have permissions for this, I still shouldn't do it. The AI has no idea. And so when you think about your AI in that context, you're like, okay, let's build the guardrails around it so that it can do its work, it can do its thing, but without blowing everything up. It's again this question of, why is platform engineering working so well at some big European companies or healthcare? Because guardrails are a world that they understand. And so it's incredible the stuff that healthcare is doing with AI. They have some big mistakes, they have some big misses, but they understand, how can we put guardrails around something without kind of smothering it to death? And that's really where platform engineering shines. And AI with guardrails that let it grow, let it expand, let it do awesome stuff without basically blowing up the whole company, which AI can do. That's where the magic is.
Exactly. You've mentioned, I think we are approaching 1 hour here. You've talked about a couple of studies that you have conducted and reports. Where can people find those? Do you have a...
Yeah, platformengineering.org.
Okay, I'm gonna comment it on the live later on. Yeah, and so basically, you wanna give us some last words about platformengineering.org, and then...
Sure. I mean, the final thing I would say, like, if you're interested in platform engineering, like, go to platformengineering.org. We've got basically every format you could possibly want. There's awesome articles there, many of them written by myself. So if you didn't hate how much I was rambling on here, then you can go read some of my words in my voice. Maybe you can train an AI on my voice and get it read to you. We have lots of webinars, we have awesome videos on YouTube, and we have the research reports. If you want to know architecturally how to build a good platform, we have a reference architecture for internal developer platforms, both on GCP and on Azure. And then, of course, we have a newsletter, Platform Weekly. Every Friday, it goes out to 100,000 people. So whatever the taste of content you want, we've got awesome stuff in the platform engineering space.
Yeah, and you also have certifications. I don't know if you want to talk about this.
I think we touched on it a bit. And look, if you're a certification hunter, you can go and take one of our certifications. I'd love to have you there. It'd be awesome to see you and to learn. But really, if you're someone who wants to learn platform engineering, like platformengineering.org, there's absolutely no better place to do it.
I'm going to take a couple of those for sure.
Nice.
Yeah. So I've next week I'm talking about like observability and open telemetry. What do you think should be the next topic from here in this realm of platform engineering? Just an idea or suggestion.
Well, I mean, I think the big topic on my mind really is how platform engineering is shifting out of its usual kind of domain. Like platform engineering emerged really from this infrastructure space, from this very DevX focused space. And now, like you may have noticed, we're able to talk about observability in relation to platforms. We're talking about security in relation to platforms. Like platform engineering is starting to really grow. And a lot of these domains are starting to be thought about, well, maybe we could just shift this into the platform. Like, why wouldn't you just have observability by design? Like, why not have observability be just a de facto part, a layer that flows across the entire platform, the entire software delivery lifecycle? So that's what I'm really interested in at the moment. Like, how can you get a platform that is full of observability by design, it's secure by design, where observability isn't like an action item that comes somewhere on a list. It's just a core component that's through every single stage, automated, de facto. This is really where I think we're heading. And maybe not, maybe we'll see. We're still learning, but I think this is the path that we're on, and that's really what I'm interested in at the moment.
Yeah, but for me, it's gonna be to go hunting for somebody who have implemented the process, and so that they can share their experience with us.
That'd be amazing.
I'll let you know.
Yeah, let me know. Yeah. I want to see it. And if he says no, Sam is completely wrong, get him out of here, I'll be like, amazing.
I'm gonna add you to the call so that you can argue with them. Yeah, Sam, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I enjoyed this hour of talking. And thank you very much for the knowledge that you have shared with us. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And again, thank you for your time. Thank you for
absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much. Invite,
see you soon, and see you in the next edition of Affairs.
Yeah, see you in the next one.
Have a good
everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for watching.